Okay, so once again, good afternoon, everyone. Today's lesson is continuity on an interval. So last week lesson, just to have a recap, we were able to state whether the given function is continuous or not using or verifying the three conditions of continuity. The first condition should be f of c exists, or when you are going to evaluate the value of the function using the value of c, the function must be exist. The second condition should be the limit of f of x as x approaches to c exists. For the second condition, you must be able to differentiate or to calculate the right hand limit and the left hand limit. And as we all know, when the right hand limit is not equal to the left hand limit, then the limit of f of x as x approaches to c does not exist. Okay? And condition three must be when you evaluate the function using c, it should be equal to the limit of f of x as x approaches to c. If at least one of these three conditions is not met, then f or the function is said to be discontinuous at x is equal to c. So for today's lesson, we have continuity on an interval. So a function can be continuous on an interval. So meaning to say, in a layman's term, when you say continuity on an interval, this means that it is continuous at every point on the interval. So that's tantamount to say that if we are going to draw the entire graph of the function on an interval without lifting or tracing a pen or without being interrupted by the hole in any part of the graph or in the middle of the graph, then we can conclude that the function is continuous on that interval. So before we proceed with the discussion, I would like you to determine the domain of the given function. So when you say domain, those are the permissible values of x that will make the whole function defined. Okay? So say for example, the function is y is equal to 2x plus 1. Can you state the domain? First, what kind of function is that? If you are grappling um, of stating the domain of letter A, what kind of function first? Is it quadratic function? Is it rational function? Is it exponential function? Is it logarithmic? I don't think so. It's not. It's logarithmic. Is it linear function? Is it absolute value function? What kind of function is that? That's correct. The beta, it's a linear
Linear,
function.
sir.
That's correct. The real, it's linear function. And what do we know about linear function? What's the graph of the linear function? The graph forms a what? Linear. From the root word itself. What's the root word of linear? Straight line, that's correct. Balkin is straight line. So if that's a straight line, then the domain, this is the domain, the x. Do we have a hole there? Domain, this is the x. So meaning to say the domain will be what? It extend in opposite direction because there is an arrowhead here. So the domain will be what? Ito yung domain, oh. So ano yung domain natin?
2 po.
2 only? Infinity? Or we could say the domain there is from negative infinity to positive infinity or sa set of all real number. Infinity. It's accepted. Okay? So lahat pwede. That is what we meant by real number. We have number 2. Y is equal to x squared minus 2x plus 2. Can you state what's the domain? Quadratic, very good. You were able to differentiate, I mean to easily identify that that is a quadratic function. I was about to ask you what kind of function is that. So my next question will be, if that's a quadratic function, basically the graph there is a parabola that opens either upward or downward, depends upon the value of sorry, depends upon the value of A. If the value of A is greater than 1, then basically the graph opens upward. If the value of A is less than 1, meaning to say negative, so the parabola opens downward. But we don't, I mean, the opening of the parabola here has nothing to do with the domain. The domain here is also the set of all real number. Ibang usapan kapag pinapakuha ang range kasi hindi yan real number. Letter C. Let's say we have here x squared, although this is not a function, but an equation. Are you familiar with the given equation? X squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Rational? It's not rational. You forgot that lesson? We have that lesson, x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. When you say rational tabita, it should be written in the form of a over b, where b must not be equal to 0. So it should be in fraction form. Or real? No, no. You tell me what kind of equation is this? What is this equation? X squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Do you recognize? It's not a quadratic. You forgot the lesson in pre-calc. Very good, Balkin. That's circle. So a circle that has a radius of 1. So this is negative 1 and this is 1. So the graph looks like this one. So here is the domain. So what's the domain? From negative 1 to positive 1. Is it okay if I am going to put negative 1, 1 instead of bracket? Negative 1, 1 bracket.
No, sir. Kasi po
Why?
magiging point.
What's
Magiging
the
point po
difference?
yun.
Okay. Hindi siya point ha. We're not referring here the coordinates. You tell me the difference. I hope someone from your group, you tell me the difference between a bracket and a parenthesis. In general math lesson. When you say bracket, that is included. When you say parenthesis, that is excluded. Does it make sense? Example, um, we have here from 3 to positive infinity, and the second one is 3 to positive infinity. The solution set here will be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on. The solution set here will be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Kasama kapag ka bracket, hindi kasama kapag ka yan ay parenthesis. That's why it's wrong to say negative 1, 1. Dapat it should be negative 1, 1 bracket parehas. I hope naalala pa yung ating lesson on GenMath. Let us have letter D. D there will be y is equal to the square root of x plus 1. It is a radical form. And when you say in radical form, when is the expression inside the radical defined? The value inside the radical sign must be what? must be, do you have the calculator? Positive real numbers, that's correct. Including zero. It's not only positive real, but whole numbers. You forgot the zero. Because once the value inside the radical sign is zero, square root of zero is defined. Because the square root of zero is zero. So meaning to say, x plus 1 must be greater than or equal to zero. The value of x plus 1 must be greater than or equal to zero. Solving for x, we have there x greater than or equal to negative 1. Writing this one into interval notation, the domain will be bracket negative 1 to positive infinity. Meaning it's included, not parenthesis. Okay? If you are having a hard time understanding the interval notation, hindi ko na pa paano ko gagawin. Kasi the general math, I don't want to blame your teachers because I'm sure they are teaching you this kind of way of writing the domain. Um, you have to review na lang siguro how to write the domain in this form. Although this one is accepted, but in calculus kasi we will be using this kind of interval notation. Okay? For letter E, we have here y is equal to 2x plus 1 all over x minus 1. What kind of function is that? Nagahang yung akin. Function, anong klaseng function yan? Y is equal to 2x plus 1 all over x minus 1. Is it linear? Is it quadratic? Is it exponential function? Is it rational function? Is it logarithmic? That's correct. Balkin, it's rational function. And when you encounter a rational function and you are asked to find the domain, all you have to do is to look at the denominator of the rational function. That's correct, Shane Kabe. All sets of real number except 1. So the domain here, you have to solve if you want. So x minus 1, the value of the denominator must not be equal to 0 because once that is 0, it will make the whole function undefined. Solving for x, we have there x must not be equal to 1. So the domain will be is a set of all real number not equal to not equal to 1. You look at how I wrote the restricted value. You could also say sets of a real numbers such that x not equal to 1. My worry about writing this kind of domain is that when there are more than two restricted value, you will say r is x not equal to 1, negative 1. It's too long. Unlike for the first one, you just have to use the symbol, the parang ano to siya, parang division ang dating, not equal to 1. Or in interval notation, you could say that the domain there will be from negative infinity to 1, parenthesis, union, 1 to positive infinity. Question? Your answers are right. Shane Kabe got the way of get it correctly. The domain is real numbers except 1. What I am trying to emphasize here is you write it in interval notation. Okay, so our lesson for today will be one-sided continuity. It's only part of the lesson. It's not the lesson na one-sided lang. So a function can be continuous on an interval. Okay, so one-sided continuity, meaning a function f is said to be continuous from the left at x is equal to c if when you evaluate the function using c, it should be equal to the limit of f of x as x approaches c from the left. And a function is said to be continuous from the right at x is equal to c if when you evaluate the function, the limit is equal to, I mean, um, the f of c is equal to the limit of f of x as x approaches c from the right. Okay, so I have to stress out this one. I hope all your ears are on this slide. So you are not going to have a lengthy solution later. Continuity on polynomial, absolute value, rational, and square root function. Letter A. A polynomial functions are continuous everywhere. Remember that the domain of the polynomial function is the set of all real number. The domain is from negative infinity to positive infinity. Okay, so when you have the function, polynomial function, and you were asked to state whether, say for example, y is equal to 2x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 6, is it continuous at the open interval 0 10? The answer is yes, it is continuous at the open interval at open interval at the interval 0 10 because letter A is a polynomial function and we know that a polynomial function is continuous everywhere. So yes, it is a polynomial function. So yes, it is continuous at 0 10 because polynomial functions are continuous everywhere. That's how you are going to construct your answer. So more on writing ang gagawin. I repeat, letter A, since since y is f na lang, since f is a polynomial function, then it is continuous everywhere. Thus, it is continuous at 0 10. So you no need to solve kasi it is continuous everywhere. For letter B, it is continuous everywhere when the absolute value function is given. So same conclusion ang gagawin natin. Since f is a absolute value function, then it is continuous everywhere. Thus, it is continuous at 0 10. For letter C, rational functions are continuous on their respective domains. Say, for example, f of x is equal to, give me a function, say 2x plus 1 all over x minus 1. Is it continuous at um, 0, 1? Okay, so you will say that the function f is discontinuous at 1. Okay, naging continuous lang yan siya at real number except 1. Discontinue, continuous siya dyan. Since restricted value ang 1, then discontinuous yan pagdating kay 0. Okay, for letter D, the square root function, square root of x is continuous at bracket 0, close interval pala, close interval 0 to positive infinity. Okay? So we have here, consider the graph of the function f given below. I want you to type if you don't want to open your microphone. Use the graph. Determine the function f is continuous on the following intervals. Letter A, the interval. It's not a coordinate, ha? Please, we are not talking about the coordinate here of negative 1, 1. It is an interval. Open interval, negative 1, 1. Is it continuous in using the graph? Please type your answer. continuous, not continuous according to Tabitha. What about the others? There are 43 students in this room. No, what is meant by no, Jessica? No discontinuous or no continuous? Not continuous. You just use the word continuous, discontinuous. Okay. Now remember, thank you for the answer. So remember that when we say trace the right side of x is equal to c, -1, we are tracing not from from x is equal to c on x-axis, but from point c, f of c along the graph. I am pertaining to -1, 1. So we can trace the graph from the right side of -1. This is -1. So right side is here. Diba natitrace natin to? Do we have a hole there? Okay, to the left side of x is equal to 1 without lifting the pen we are using. Then therefore, we say that f is continuous on the interval -1, 1. Remember the graph is a quadratic function. And what do we know about quadratic function? Here, quadratic function, the domain is a set of all real number. Let's try number 2. 1b rather. The interval -infinity to 0, continuous or discontinuous? Is the graph continuous at -infinity to 0? Negative infinity is from here. There's -infinity going to 0. Is it continuous or discontinuous? Arabelle says it's continuous. What about the others? Diona Castillo also said it's continuous. Okay, continuous. I hope nakita kung bakit siya continuous. Ano? If we trace the graph of any negative number on the left side of 0, this one, we will not lift our pen, and so f is continuous on -80. And this one is also continuous. Kasi it's a quadratic function. Okay, let's try this. -1, 1. Continuous, discontinuous. Very good. The answer is discontinuous. Kasi when we are going to trace the graph from -1 to 1, we will be interrupted by the value of x is equal to 0. So we need to lift our pen before going to x is equal to 1. Okay? Next, what about letter B, 0.5 to 2? Its closed interval, 0.5 to 2. Continuous, discontinuous. Continuous, very good. As said, the 0.5 is here. Up to 2, here. This is 2. So this is continuous. That's correct. We don't lift the pen at all. Thank you for that, Tabitha. Okay. So here is the function is said to be continuous. Letter A, everywhere if f is continuous at every real number, when the given function is linear function, when the given function is quadratic function, and when the given function is polynomial function, whatever the interval is given, that is continuous. Letter B, that's open interval AB, if f is continuous at every point x in AB. That's open close AB, close AB included CA if F is continuous in AB and from the right at A. For letter D, on A and then B is included if F is continuous on AB and from the left at B. Here, if A and B both are included, if F is continuous on A and B included and on A included B. F on A to positive infinity if F is continuous if X is greater than A, meaning positive numbers. On G, if F is continuous on A to positive infinity and from the right of A. This one is negative, less than. So that's A, X must be less than, must be negative. And here, to the left at B. Now let's try to use those example in determining this. Determine the largest interval over which the function f of x is equal to the square root of x plus 2 is continuous. So remember that the given function here is a radical function. So let's try to find the domain. Remember that x plus 2, the value there must be greater than or equal to 0. It could be 0, it could be greater than 0. Less than 0, the value of the inside the radical sign is imaginary. Okay, so solving for x, we have x greater than or equal to negative 2. So we have there x must be an element of bracket negative 2 to positive infinities. Kasi negative 2 is negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So that's negative 2 to positive infinity. Okay? Now what happened to the function as the limit approaches to negative 2? So when you evaluate that, since f of negative 2. Since that is a radical function, we can immediately substitute. So this will be the square root of x plus 2. So negative 2 plus 2, so that is 0. When you evaluate the limit of the square root of x plus 2 as x approaches to negative 2, the right-hand limit there is 0 and the left-hand limit is also 0. So meaning to say that is also 0. So therefore, I'm only using the the lesson previous lesson natin. Then therefore f of negative 2 is equal to the limit of square root of x plus 2 as x approaches to negative 2, which is equal to 0. So therefore, for all x an element of negative 2 to positive infinity, the function is continuous. So basically, we are just getting the domain of the given function. That's the maximum. The largest interval over the function is continuous. Okay, let's have this. What's the value of x that will make the function h undefined? Can you type? Because it's a rational, so we just have to look at the denominator. Anyone, what's the value of x that will make it undefined? One is x. What about the others? From Castillo, Diona, Jessica, 1. Okay, the correct answer is, I think dalawa lang yung tumama. It's Tabitha and Arabel Miranda. Kaya ako gusto iset. So maybe you are uh, confused with x squared minus 1. The value of that must not be equal to 0. So x squared must not be equal to 1. Solving for the value of x here, we have x not equal to 1 and negative 1. When you extract the square root of a certain number, it should be plus and minus. Or x there must not be equal to plus minus 1. Kaya hindi ko tinanggap yung ang sagot ay 1 lang at saka negative 1. So, since that is a rational function, it's not defined at x is equal to 1 and x is equal to negative 1. So, therefore, h is, how do we, h is continuous over all sets of real number not equal to negative 1. Ano na kasi in-explain ko pa eh. Dinaanan ko pa yung lesson natin last week that f of c exists, the limit is exists, tapos eta. You don't need to make or show this one, show the solution kasi by just looking at the domain, you can now immediately state whether the given um, function is continuous at a given open interval or at a given interval. I wanted to answer this. Consider the function g of x. Is g continuous at 0, 1, included yung 1 and b, parenthesis 4, to positive infinity. So you have there a piecewise function. I'll be giving you 5 minutes. You just have to type, 5A continuous or 5B discontinuous. 5B continuous ba siya or 5A discontinuous? 5B discontinuous. Ay, naglang sagot. Tabita, you specify if that continuous is for 5A or 5B. Kasi you are expected, oy, si Marie Chris Valeriano, papasok lang. 5A continuous or 5B continuous? Type your answer, please. Nag-aantay ako. When the interval is at 0, 1 bracket, which of the function here? Is it this one? Is it 3? Is it 3 minus x squared? Or is it x minus 3? When the interval is 4 to positive infinity, what function are you going to take? Is it x? Is it 3? Is it 3 minus x squared? Or is it x minus 3? Because here are the interval. This one. These are the interval. No answer? Hoy, may inaantay ba akong sagot or wala? You tell me. A is 3. Jessica, you have to state whether 0, 1 is continuous at 3. I am not asking you about the kind of function that you are going to use given the interval. You have to state whether A is continuous or discontinuous, B is continuous or discontinuous. So, Alexa, Acero answered A and B. A is continuous, B is discontinuous. Salazar, continuous si A. Where is letter B? Diona Castillo answered both A and B, continuous. Jessica answered both A and B, continuous. De Los Santos, Jeriel Grace answered B, discontinuous. What about the others? Come on, guys. You only have two options. Okay? So let's answer. Kendrick and Shane, as well as Bernadette Modesto, they all answered continuous C A and C B. So for letter A, since G is a piecewise function, we just look at the piece of the function corresponding to the interval specified. So um, A here is 0 at 1. Ang kukunin natin will be, Jessica was right, it should be 3. Okay? So g of x takes the constant value of 3. So when you are going to evaluate g of x, that's equal to 3. Kasi it's a constant function. And the limit of g of x as x approaches to c, that is equals to 3. But because we have a theorem to that. So meaning to say, g of c is equal to the limit of g of x as x approaches to c, which is equal to 3. So thus, g, ito lang talaga ang sagot, is continuous on 0, 1. Mali. Should be parenthesis bracket. Ulitin ko. On 0, 1. For letter B, for all x greater than 4, so greater than 4, we will be taking x minus 3. So the function that we are going to take is x minus 3. And x minus 3 is a polynomial function. It's a linear function. And what do we know about linear function? the domain there is a set of all real numbers. So hence, g of x, which is equal to x minus 3, is surely continuous. Spelling na continuous. N-U-O-U-S. For all x an element of 4 to positive infinity. Okay? Now, for your assignment activity, sinave ko talaga yung rational. Find the domain of the function and then determine for each of the indicated interval whether the function is continuous on that interval. First thing that you are going to do is to find the domain, and you can immediately state whether the given interval, such as 3, 7, negative 6, 4, ito, this one, are all continuous or discontinuous using only the domain of the given function. Am I making myself clear? First step is to find the domain. So for each number, like for example, in number 7, 1 point for the domain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 7 points. 2, 4, 5, that's 35. Yung nasa gilid ay hindi yan siya possible answer. Yung nasa gilid ay mga interval. So say for example, number 7, f of x is equal to 2 over x plus 5. Is it continuous at 3, 7? F of x is equal to 2 over x plus 5. Is it continuous at negative 6, 4? F of x is equal to 2 over x plus 5. Is it continuous at negative 5 to positive infinity? Or is it continuous to negative 5 plus 8? Did you get my point, Jessica? So hindi yung nasa gilid ang pagpipilian ha. Lahat yan i-state nyo kung yan ba ay interval, yan ba ay continuous doon sa binigay na function. No need for the solution, but I have to you have to include a solution in finding for the domain. Need ang solution, Tabita, in finding for the domain. No need for the solution kasi you can easily state whether the interval is continuous or whether the function is continuous in the given interval. Kapag walang tanong, wait a minute lang, kukunin ko rin attendance bago umalis. Nasaan? Iahak mo muna. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for joining the class and see you next week.
Thank you po, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for
Thank you
joining.
po, sir.
We'll send you the um, PDF file.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.